Welcome everyone to tonight's Community Design Workshop for Envision New Kent, the County Strategic Plan. And this project is a project of Art Muldrow and Hill Studio, and I'm Evie Sloan with Hill Studio. Tonight, we wanted to provide you with a short update on the progress of the plan, and then we want to talk with you very broadly about your perspectives for community character and for the future development in New Kent County. And I need to remind you that additional information on the public meetings to date, the work to date, this community design workshop, that all this information can be found later on the Envision New Kent County Facebook page and a new virtual studio webpage that we have set up that I'll give you the address to a little bit later on. So to start tonight's workshop off, I'd like to talk with you about how you can participate. And so this is being broadcast in Facebook Live. And with a Facebook Live broadcast, you actually can type in comments from your device. And we have some staff members who are monitoring that. So we will, if there are important questions that come up, we will have them addressed at the end of the session. And then we also have an entertaining option for you tonight called live polling. And this is where it's actually an interactive process for you to be able to vote on some images and your thoughts. And I have to be sure and tell you now that it's important for you to have a second device handy, one that you're not using, you're not watching Facebook Live on, and that will help you in participate in this interactive polling. But don't worry, if you don't have a cell phone handy, then there are additional ways that you can participate at the end of the session, and we'll tell you how. So there's also video available of this Facebook Live presentation on Facebook Live and Virtual Design Studio for New Kent County as we move forward. So if you want to go back and look at us again, you can do that as well. And the actual new webpage that maybe you have not the is called www.envisionnkc.com. And for all of the work that we are doing on the community design workshops, we will be updating that on a regular basis and providing additional information for you to be able to look at. So be sure and check that out as well. So let's talk a little bit about the community design. Let's talk a little bit about the progress of the plan. So this strategic plan is like many plans that are done. Typically, you include a mission statement, and in particular, a vision for the 20-year future and direction of the county, as well as long-term goals that represent the county's priorities. And these are very broad-based. And then we will also have objectives and actions that we specifically add to the plan. And so this plan will be a guiding foundation for local leaders to make decisions on the future. And the plan will also strengthen the coordination among the local government departments so that everybody's on the same page. So let's talk a little bit about where we are with this project. And so we are actually in phase 4 visioning, but before I go to that and explain that a little bit more to you, I want to talk a little bit about how this project started. It started with a kickoff meeting back in January of 2020, and we had a Board of Supervisors appointed steering committee that consisted of 12 people from each of the county election districts, plus the county administrator. And we also had a public meeting at that point that really talked about what the plan was and how we would be developing input. And so as part of, so in phase 2, you can see that not only are we doing this workshop tonight, but we have had a community survey to date and a public meeting, and we are continuing that public meeting. And so as I've shown here, that we are in phase 4. And if you are very interested in the strategic assessment studies that we've identified in phase 3, things like a demographic profile, a market analysis, and a strategic assessment report, you can actually go to the Facebook page for the project, and there are PowerPoint videos that are available there to share that information with you. So let's talk a little bit about public engagement, because what we have learned to date has really been very intensive. There's been over 1,200 people who've been involved in developing and talking with us about the direction for New Kent County over the last several months. We've had at least 6 or more steering committee meetings. And remember, those steering committee meetings had 12 members plus the county administrator and other department heads that we've kind of met with as well. We've had over 1,000 participants in a community survey that's been done by SurveyMonkey. We've had 11 themed roundtables, which are small focus groups from various leaders in the community. And we've talked about things like transportation, business development, land use and zoning, broadband, youth, seniors, and even recreation. So there's been a lot of people who have been involved so far. So based on the information and the discussions that we've had, we've narrowed down this particular plan to include 5 strategic themes for New Kent County. And they are infrastructure, growth management, quality of life, governance, and resiliency. And in particular, what we are going to be focusing on tonight are items 2 and 3, growth management and quality of life. And as you can see, land management, community design, and rural character are very, very important throughout this plan. And we hope that you'll help us determine how those are to be addressed for New Kent County. So at tonight's workshop, we want to understand from you what's important about the community character of New Kent County, and where and how do you want the county to grow. So during the next we have 3 workshops scheduled. The first one, which is tonight, will address the question of what is rural character, and as well as where are the priority areas for managing growth. And then the next session that we have, which is Thursday evening, is how do we balance rural character and development, and what should development look like? And then finally, next week, the session will focus on what tools can we use and how can we manage growth and development to achieve the development that we really want in the future. So let's talk about rural character and what is rural character, because rural character is a frequent topic of discussion with a lot of the people, the stakeholders that we've had so far. And it can range anywhere from agricultural fields and pastures to natural environmental features and resources, things like rivers and forests and scenic views, to even green open space that you may find in your neighborhood. And it's also about built character, like historic villages or places where people have gathered and to do business, as well as historic places. And so rural character can mean a lot of different things to different people, and it's all based on your perspective. So let's talk a little bit about planning for rural character, because I found it very, very interesting that New Kent County is very innovative in a way. It actually, over the last 10 years, the emphasis has really been placed on understanding and planning for those special rural and natural resources in the county. And in 2009, the county actually had adopted a green infrastructure plan, which inventoried all of its green infrastructure assets. And these included things like natural habitats and landscapes, historic and cultural resources, and even outdoor recreation areas that were important. And the reason that the county actually did this plan was that it was to provide the foundation and a guide to help update the upcoming comprehensive plan. And so in 2012, the county did adopt a new comprehensive plan, and it is very interesting to note that the long-range goals for the plan really focus around preserving the county's existing rural character and protecting the natural environment. And in fact, in the plan itself, it was noted that the central focus of the adopted plan was to maintain the county's attractive rural character while providing opportunities for the creation of income and wealth. And so that's from the existing plan that the county has been operating from for many years. Now, recently, defining rural character and how to manage development and that rural character, it's been the topics of many short papers that you might also find online. These are not from the local government, but these are from interest groups, such as the Rural Character paper from the New Kent Partnership in 2019 and the New Kent Vision 2040 paper from the Chamber of Commerce just this year. So let me show you what we are talking about when we're talking about this green infrastructure and how you might start for planning for rural character. So again, this goes back to the 2009 plan, and you can see that the county's infrastructure has many connected and contributing landscapes that are of environmental and perhaps scenic value. And so all of these were identified for planning purposes. And so this is a very important map, and it's kind of a baseline that we will be working from as well. So let's talk a little bit about rural character, because rural character can range from farms to open rolling landscapes along the road, and even in an area, hiking and biking trails have a certain rural character with them. And then you also have large lot residential landscapes that may be considered rural character. But rural character is also displayed in the small towns and the villages and in crossroads commercial areas. So here you see what the character of a small village might be, or in a crossroads commercial area. And all of those have a certain amount of specific place character. And it can even include such things as a residential inn or a renovated building, renovated historic building. So we want to also understand from you tonight where are the priorities to manage growth. And so what are the ones that are most important to you? And we've kind of identified about 6 that maybe we want to look at and talk about tonight. And I would want you to think about what you might want for them to, how you would want them to grow in the future and what they might look like. And these are things like community commercial areas where maybe you shop and go to the drugstore or grocery store, the residential neighborhoods that you live in, the villages like historic New Kent, business parks for recruiting new business, the interstate and commercial interchanges. What do the visitors see when they actually approach your community? And then there are even things like road corridors within your county, whether they be primary or secondary, that also have a certain kind of a character to them. So let's talk about some of the development patterns that we've seen in New Kent. And so here's an example of, these are distinctive character areas with varying land development and land uses in them, but you can see that there's kind of a difference between each one. So there's a village center, which is historic New Kent. Then you have planned neighborhoods or neighborhoods. I just happen to choose this particular slide, which is a planned community development, but neighborhoods can be much more rural as well. So this is just one example of a neighborhood in New Kent. Then you have things like a commercial crossroads that may just include a little general store or an office and a gas station. And then you have primary and secondary roads that are very, very important to the overall character of the community. So now we want to know what you think. So I'm going to turn it over to one of my other teammates, and he's going to lead you into how we're going to do this interactive polling.
Awesome. Thank you, Evie. And now's the time that hopefully we can have some fun here. My name's Aaron Arnett. I think that Evie introduced us all at the top of the video, and many of you all have already met me as well. But what we want to do now is have a little bit of fun and do a little interactive exercise with you. So what I'd like for you to do is pull out a second device. Hopefully you have another device, not just the one that you're watching this video on. So it could be another phone or a tablet. Pull up your browser. We're going to give you a few minutes to do this before we get going, but pull up your internet browser. It could be Safari or Chrome, depending on whatever device that you happen to have. And then go into the address bar at the top of that browser and type in pollev.com/New Kent. We've got about 35 or so people on the video right now, and then there's 3 or 4 people that are hosting the video as well. So hopefully we have a good bit of people on that can participate in this. But like Evie said, what we want to do right now is just have a conversation about character and what that means to New Kent County, and that will help us build throughout these next couple of weeks and the design workshop that we're working on. So what I am going to do right now is I am going to share my screen, and I am going to turn on the first question. All right, so now if you've been able to go to pollev.com/New Kent, you should see this this very first question. And one last thing before I turn it back over to Evie, as I see awesome people are already starting to chime in. If you don't have your device, a second device with you, don't worry about that, because you can go to the Envision NKC.com website and then click on the community design workshop, and you'll see a link there to the same 10 questions. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to you, Evie.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. So what rural character features are most important to you? And we're going to choose 3 of them. I know that there are many, many that are important, but we wanted to be able to get some kind of an idea of how there were varying opinions. So just choose your top 3. And as you can see how people feel like that these are important, and we're going to give you, maybe there's a little bit of lag time. We're going to give everybody, I don't know, maybe about a minute or so to be able to respond to these. And as some of these begin to change up and become stable, then I'll stop. So anyway, so let me just give you about another 10 seconds or so, and then we'll kind of stop this. But as Aaron said, if you feel like that you want to have more time or go back, you can look at this on the web. So farms and fields, forests, rivers and streams, attractive landscapes, scenic views, natural landscapes and habitat. And you can see the main one so far is the natural landscapes and habitats, but there are others that are very, very important. And so what these are doing is this is telling us what are things that are important to you, so that as this design team moves forward with what development should look like and where development should happen, we'll take into account your comments. So I think we're going to wrap this one up. And so Aaron, you can go to the next question. So what rural character features are most important to you? So these, choose another 3. Remember, in my discussion, I said that there were natural resources, but there's also built environments that are very important to some people that represent rural character. So choose the top 3 that you feel are important in terms of New Kent County. Oh, I like all the interaction that we're getting. I hope you all are having fun. Okay, I don't want to give anybody a whole lot of time so that you kind of try to balance things out. Looks like recreational areas and trails is very important, as well as villages and historic places. So I think maybe give us another 5 or 10 seconds, Aaron, and then you can move on to the next slide. Okay, I think it's enough. All right, next slide. So where do you think managing growth should be a priority? And choose 3. And this does not mean that we aren't going to look at all of these, but basically we want to know where you are most concerned about what development needs to look like and where it needs to be controlled. So villages in the comprehensive plan were pointed out as potentially as being in New Kent Courthouse, Provident Forge, and Bottoms Bridge, whereas Crossroads commercial areas were in Eltham and Lenexa, among probably other areas. So it looks like people are very, very interested in village commercial centers, and especially the interstate interchanges. And I was kind of expecting that. So that's very, very good. So we'll give it another 10 or 15 seconds and then basically move to the next slide. Okay, I think we've kind of stabilized. Aaron, you want to hit the next question?
One thing I want to mention, Evie, before you go into this one, is everybody who is seeing this on their individual devices, you're actually going to see the picture a little bit crisper and cleaner and larger on your device than you are going to see on the screen where you're seeing the actual chart.
Okay, and let me talk a little bit about these images too. Which of these images represents what you believe a village should look like? And we want you to choose 2 different patterns. And so the first image is an example of a very dense village with a sidewalk and landscaping, and it's built up close to the road. It has 2- and 3-story buildings, probably ground level retail, and perhaps offices and or residential above on the second floor. And then the second image is a little bit more quaint of a village that basically includes some residential development as well as commercial development. It's not as dense as what you see in the village above. And then the next image is a village that really kind of shows some of the pedestrian connections and landscaping, lighting, different kinds of signage, parking that's next to the street, different things that perhaps may be applicable or desired for your community. And then the fourth image is a very rural main street with just a couple of simple brick buildings, probably 1 or 2 story, maybe a post office in a general store built close to the street. So you can see that each one of these has a little bit of different character. And I have to point out that in terms of a village is where you have concentrated development, and perhaps you have concentrated development there so you don't have a lot of things spread out all over the county. Each of these are examples of what you might find in a community. It's not necessarily that they fit New Kent entirely, but they are examples of how other communities have treated villages. So with that, I've probably talked more and everybody's probably changed their vote, not sure, but it looks like that some nice buildings and pleasant things along the streetscape are very, very important to the residents who are participating in this poll. Okay, Aaron. So in addition to the village patterns that you saw on the previous slide, these are some additional examples. What represents what you believe a village should look like? Choose two. So the first image is one that is really more urban and you might find in some of your outlying villages like Providence Forge. The second image is one that is more of a pedestrian kind of a network with trees and paved sidewalks and nice residential and quaint buildings along that. The third one is something that you might find in a rural community. This one actually is from Buckingham Courthouse, and essentially you have small kind of mixed residential and commercial development, but it's right there adjacent to the road. So if you have a real rural place, that might be something that works. And then the final image is one of a Dollar General store that has been adapted for the context, the architectural context of the community. And so because Dollar General happens a lot in village areas and in crossroads, we thought that we would show you an example, and maybe that would help you understand some of the things that we were looking for. So with that, it looks like everybody really likes the trees and the walkable sidewalks, and that seems to be the highest one. But you also have some growing areas, so I guess that's showing that perhaps you want some additional new development, not necessarily just old established development in the center. Okay, Aaron, I think that helps us there if you want to move on to the next question. So which of these represents what you believe a crossroads business area should look like? And we want you to choose two. So the first image is a rather vintage and kind of a quaint gas station that's been repurposed either for a store or a gas station. The second image is a more modern gas station that you might find in a community. The third is a typical general store that you may find somewhere along your crossroads. And then the fourth is a very unique but very interesting live-work kind of space where you have residential above, a ground floor, a grocery store or a post office or something like that, but it does have residential above it. So people really like the vintage gas station. Okay, and then you still like the more modern. And maybe it has to do with the canopy is kind of a nice scale with the gas station as well. So some of those details we might be able to pick out a little bit later. So with that, we'll move on to the next question. So which of these represents what you believe a business and industrial park should look like? Choose two. So the first one is actually in a rural area that has clustered buildings that are very appropriate to the design of the rural landscape. And it's basically got a lot of open area around it. The second one is a more urban area, but it is essentially a business campus with a lot of landscaping, nicely designed buildings and lighting. And then the third image is an entry corridor that basically has landscaping, a stone wall, some landscaping within the pavement itself, and also some nice attractive lighting. And then the fourth image is of an industrial park with signage, ground signage at its entrance. And then the buildings are very architecturally nice, and you can see that they are placed in a setting that is very well landscaped and open. So it looks like everybody really, really likes the landscape entrance, and also a lot of the open areas, maybe with some very, very unique buildings. Okay, Erin, I think that's got that one. So the next question is, which of these represents what you believe an interstate interchange for commerce should look like? Choose two. The first one is what you may typically see in, and when you get off an interchange for a community with development along both sides of the road. The second image is also an area that you might see when you exit the interchange, but there's been a lot of attention and detail to the architecture of the building as well as the landscaping that is around it. The third image is a typical gas station that you may find, that we frequently find and look for when we are traveling and wanting to purchase gasoline. This one in particular shows a lot of landscaping, and it also has even some nice brick buildings and some side amenities to it. And then the final image is development that is really placed back from the road, and you have to go through a set of trees to really be able to get to the development. But you can see that there's a sign there that basically provides insight as to what kind of development you see back there. So everybody seems to like the nice landscaping and the nice architecturally controlled buildings. Okay, well, Erin, you want to hit the next slide, please. So one of the things that we heard in working in New Kent County is that there needs to be greater options for housing types in the county. So which of these housing types would work in the county? Choose two. The first one is actually a duplex that has been designed to actually fit in the context of the architecture that you might see in that community. The second one is a new subdivision, but it's what's called a conservation subdivision, which basically has common green space that people share. The third is a central village area that has a combination of mixed uses, both residential and retail, but it is a much more dense environment and allows for many different kinds of housing, including workforce housing. And then the fourth image is of townhouses that can be either in a village area, or it could be in a planned unit development, or it could be on a standalone lot. All right, well, it looks like that people really like the open space and also the ability to have some dense development in the downtown, but you also like the opportunity to be able to perhaps have something like a two-family dwelling. And I should have referred to that as a two-family dwelling instead of a duplex. That's not right. Okay, Erin, I think that we're ready to move on to the next slide. Okay, so what should be developed along the primary and what should development along the primary and secondary roads look like? Choose three. Should they be landscaped or forested corridors? Should they have lighting and maybe minimal signage, and those need to be low scale? Should the buildings be set back from the road? Should the buildings be close to the road? Should there be parking areas that are landscaped with minimal pavement visible? And should there be buildings with architectural character? Looks like you all have to think a little bit about these. Okay, I think we're kind of settling down now. So let's go ahead and wrap this one up and go to the next.
This one is actually the last of our 10 questions. So I am going to go back to our presentation and hand it back to Evie.
Okay, there is a slide.
Well, I'm sorry about that, Evie. That was my fault.
Well, anyway, let me just, okay. So one of the things that I wanted to at least leave you with is that on Thursday, what we will do is that we will take all of the input that we get from you all, and we will begin developing some potential design concepts that we believe that we want to talk with you about, that we believe will balance rural character and development. And we want to share with you some examples of what that development could look like. And that will probably be in the form, it may be of pictures that are better pictures than what we shared with you tonight, but it also may be of a particular rendering or a graphic. And then, so that's on Thursday, June 25th at 6 p.m., again with Facebook Live. And then the following week on Thursday, July the 2nd, we realized that that's really a tough time, but it's at 3 o'clock in the afternoon because we want to be able to catch you and talk with you before you go off for your 4th of July weekend. But we will come to some consensus about what those community design concepts might be. And we'll talk with you a whole lot more about some development tools that can be used to manage growth. And that might be things like zoning or subdivision or different kinds of programs that other communities use. And okay, and then the final thing that we want to talk with you about is if you want to continue the discussion, please go to the Envision New Kent Facebook page, where we will continue to be updating things. And in particular for these community design workshops, go to envisionnkc.com, and we will be adding more information, and there will be a summary after each of the workshops. So tell your neighbors and friends that if they missed it, that they can go to either one of these sources and be able to find out more. And right now, what I also want to do is to find out if there are any questions that we've received from our participants that the rest of our team has seen that perhaps we need to talk about before we leave for the evening. So Maria or Ross, do we have any questions that maybe somebody's brought up?
Hey, Evie, no questions yet. We could potentially keep it open for a few more minutes just in case anybody wants to add a comment and ask you a question.
Let's do that. And while we wait for any questions that may be coming in, Evie, there were a couple of comments that were brought out, and you know, we can chat about those. First, Mike mentioned a couple of times that they don't want to see any more dollar stores in the town and Food Line as well. That's certainly comments that we've heard in some of the input that we've had so far. Nicole mentioned that the housing types that we were looking at in the polling tends to show more dense population, and she has some concerns about that, most likely having to do with the rural character of the county. Those were brought up. You can certainly, if you have any thoughts about those, you can add them. We do have a couple of questions about, Leslie asked, what are the plans for lighting? So lighting as it relates to design is a question that she has.
Well, and I think it's obvious that we need to get into more detail, and we will. The main thing that we really wanted to accomplish with you all tonight was to really get you thinking about all these things and to get some real understanding about where some of your priorities are and what some of the characteristics for development are. And yes, lighting is certainly something that we want to talk about in anything that we recommend, as well as signage and parking and landscaping and architectural character. And so I think really in the future sessions, the one on Thursday and the one next week, I think that they're going to be in much more detail and much more oriented towards New Kent County. And so I hope that you will tune in. And if you can't for some reason, I hope that you will follow up and go to the web page or the Facebook page and be able to learn a little bit more. And so with that, I guess I just wanted to thank you for your time tonight. Please stay tuned for the work that we're going to do. Our workshops really do progress well, and we get into a little bit more detail. And we have all enjoyed working in New Kent County and look forward to hearing more from you and sharing our ideas. So with that, we will see you soon.
Absolutely. And thank you everyone for your time and attention. Now, I know that there's storms going on right now up your way, so I appreciate your time here. One of the questions that was brought up, I did want to mention, because I do think it's important for the rest of the workshop that we're going to be having here, is about the number of participants and respondents that need to take part in this process. And I can tell you that we have been extremely pleased to date. With the answer to that question is we want to get as much participation as possible. Is there a magic number we're shooting for? Not necessarily, but I can tell you that we're extremely pleased to date with the participation that we've had. One of the slides Evie showed at the very beginning was with our community survey itself, we had over 1,000 people, which equates to about, just under 5% of the population of New Kent County. And again, we've been pleased with that. I would encourage you to go to the Envision NKC.com website, and you can see an overview of that input. And I'm sure that many of people that are on the call right now or on the video right now were part of that and participated in that survey. But absolutely, share this with your friends. The video is going to be saved as soon as we end this meeting on the Facebook page. You can continue to look at it and provide comments. And then as we meet with you again on Thursday, hopefully we'll have another robust discussion. And then next week when we meet with you once again. But look at these two tools in particular, the Facebook page and the virtual design website, over the course of the week for additional updates and additional information and opportunities for input. But thank you all so much for your time, and we will see you on Thursday.